Hello, hello, Dr. Clif, your movement recovery specialist, and welcome back to episode 4 of Fridays Forgotten. Now, as I promised last week, we're taking a break from the barbell and we're going to do something completely different. I've noticed in, the strength world lately there's a increased emphasis and kind of revitalization of grip training. But there's one area that's kind of been forgotten, and that's the fingers themselves. Finger training is very important, not only for improving your overall strength if you're doing something like trying to lift kettlebells, barbells, tree trunks, or anything a little odd and unusual, but it's also very important for just your day-to-day keyboard warrior that's busy typing and writing and doing things that put a lot of stress on the fingers and the wrist. So today we're going to use this very complex book as our training implement. Yes, let's get the word right. Now, as you'll see, my book must be old because it's in black and white. Now, actually, it's fairly old. Great book. I think it went out of print in about 1983 or something. But the book doesn't matter because this isn't what we're using as far as the information. The information is actually older. It comes from the 1920s, 30s, and was primarily developed by a famous strongman, George Jowett. George was able to take and lift a anvil, with one hand up in the air and hold it. A feat that most even modern day strongmen couldn't do. He wrote a book called Molding a Mighty Grip. He actually wrote a series of books, Molding Mighty Legs, Molding Mighty Arms, but the one that was particularly popular was his Molding a Mighty Grip book, which went out of print years ago, but actually is back in print. You can find it on Amazon. I'll put a link down here below in the description somewhere if you're interested. It's not a real big book. Maybe 40 pages, maybe 50 at the most. And there's a lot of stuff in there about playing with barrels, which unless you have a bunch of barrels or beer kegs in the back, you might not be able to do some of those. But there's also some book lifting exercises using your fingers, and that's what we're going to go over today. Okay, so now we're in our setup for showing you the book. Here's the book. I put it on the edge of a desk or a table, and you put your hand underneath with the palm facing up. Now you'll notice that my wrist is not on the table because I don't want my whole arm to be able to help out. I'm just using my fingers, and my thumb is not under the book because we don't want the thumb. We're going to exercise separately after. And then you lift the book using just one finger. See, I use my index finger and lift the book up and then come back down. And you can do a couple of those, a set of 10. If you really wanted to build up your endurance, you could do up to 20 of them. Really depends on the weight of the book. And then you switch to the next finger. And my middle finger, then my ring finger. And you'll see when I get over to the pinky that this is a good deal more challenging than it is with the first couple fingers. Then you can do each finger one after the other and work on building up some speed. This is great for people that play the piano, great for people that spend all day typing, keyboards, gamers. If you're spending hours on the computer playing games, this is a great exercise for you. Just working your way back and forth along all these. Then we do the reverse. So you flip the hand over, and I'm going to lift it up with, you'll find these harder for most people. These extensor muscles are not as strong. Book's sliding on me a little. You can see already, even my middle finger really struggles to move this book. I might need a lighter book. And this book is not that big. I get over here to my ring finger, and it does not want to do this on its own. This might be harder than the 300-pound deadlifts from a couple weeks ago. And then that pinky, I'm about maxed out here. I can get it up, but barely. I might start with a smaller book if I was doing a bunch of these. Now, the thumb is a slightly different animal, because if I still have my hand flat on the table and lift my thumb up, that's not a natural motion for it. The thumb actually moves up this way. There we go. You see that? And down this way so that it's coming into the middle of the palm. So for the thumb strengthening with the book, we're going to have our hand up like you're going to shake hands. Put the thumb underneath and lift the book up this way. Little bit different position because the thumb's motion is different. As far as strengthening it, the opposite, where you bring it in, you could theoretically flip your hand around the other way and lift up, but really you're using your whole arm to do that. I don't think that's a very good exercise. There's a bonus exercise that works all of the fingers and the middle of the hand, but especially the thumb, that's not in Mr. Jowett's book, that I'm going to show you next. Oh, yes, the bonus exercise. Get yourself a magazine. Or, this was done in the olden days, not that long ago, with a newspaper. Remember those things? Before we just read everything online? Newspaper works a little bit better if you can get your hands on it just because it's bigger. But a magazine works pretty well. It's pretty good as well. What I do is I take the magazine, and especially if it has staples. If you have these magazines that are glued together now, it's a little bit tougher. But if it has staples, you just pull it like that, and you get a big sheet of paper. Then what you do is you take this paper, you hold it at the corner, and you just crunch it up like so. See how much my thumb's working? You use all the little muscles in between your fingers, and your thumb gets a pretty good workout here. And you throw it in the garbage can. I'll show you with the other hand just so you get the idea. If you do, a couple of these, or especially one, you'll think, oh, that doesn't really do much. But if you do 10, 20 sheets while you're watching TV or listening to a podcast or something, if you do a whole magazine, you'll realize there's little muscles in here in between your fingers and your forearm that you didn't even know were there. Now, one more bonus tip is that you can really feel this working the whole way up your arm back into your shoulder, especially if you do a lot of them, if you hold your arm out straight while you do it. Just make sure, as we've talked about in some other videos that I've done about posture and shoulder and neck pain, that if you do it this way, your shoulder stays down. You don't want it way up here by your ear while you're doing it. So arm out straight and smash this up into a little ball. The smaller you can get it, the better. We'll work a lot of different muscles in your fingers, wrist, the whole way up to your shoulder. Now, Thank you for tuning in to Fridays Forgotten. If you enjoyed this video and you're not already subscribed, make sure you click that red button down there in the corner. And if you're already subscribed but you aren't getting some of these videos, there's a little bell down there. If you click the bell, you'll get a notification when I publish this, and you'll be more likely not to miss any of these fun exercises. If you're already a member, there's some exercise you heard of or something you have questions about in this video even, leave a message down in the comments and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Until next week, remember, life is a strength sport, so get stronger and get living. Now, this exercise was popular probably 100 years ago, especially